Hello and welcome, everyone. I hope you can hear me okay. Welcome to this global information session on greenhouse gas emissions. Let's just, oh, I see a thumbs up. That means you can hear me. That's wonderful. Always a good start. Let's give it one more minute to let additional people join, and then we'll go ahead and get started. Okay, welcome again to all of you, and thank you so much for joining us here today for our global information session on greenhouse gas emissions. In this meeting, we will focus on decarbonization actions in the field, and we have some wonderful speakers and field experts with us here today. So we hope that it will be an exciting call. Let me get started by sharing my screen. One moment. Okay, I hope you can see my screen. Let me go to full screen mode. Can somebody give me a little thumbs up whether the screen works fine? And you can see it. Wonderful. Thank you, Miranda. Great. So once again, welcome to everyone. My name is Nora Steurer, and I am the greenhouse gas emission specialist with the WREC Coalition. Now, before we start our call, just a little live poll, and we would like to know from you where you are joining us from. So let me just start the poll. There you go. So if you can just give us your country, and yeah, just let's see where people are joining us from. Great. I see quite a lot of people from Hungary. That's nice. Myself, I am also joining you from Hungary, from Budapest. So nice to greetings to fellow people from here. And yeah, we have quite a variety of people from different world regions. So that's great. Welcome, everybody. I do have some trouble with my presentations. I'm wondering just Paula or Myrna, if you can just help me with launching the polls, because the screen share doesn't quite work as it's supposed to. So then I'll share my screen, and if you can just help me with launching the polls, that would be wonderful. Let me go back. Okay. Yeah, so then one more poll for you before we go to content. I would like to know from you, what do you hope to get out of this session? So if you can just help me launch the little poll, that would be wonderful.
Do you see it now? It should be on the screen.
Yes. Yeah. So this is a multiple choice, and you can select any and all options you like on what do you hope to get out of this info session on decarbonization actions in the field. Okay, and I see some answers coming in. I learn about best practices from those who have done it. I see also learn about technical details and learning how to convince my team that decarbonization in the field is possible. Thank you. Those are some excellent reasons. One of the reasons why I wanted to start the session with this little poll is because I'd just like to emphasize that this session, we'd like to organize it as a sort of live help desk. So it's really there also for you to ask your questions you've always wanted to ask about how to implement decarbonization actions in the field. The speakers we have with us are operations people, meaning they are in the field or have extensive field experience. They know how to get stuff done in the field. They are not necessarily the, let's say, engineering experts that can tell you exactly how you would install a solar panel, but they do understand what the steps are you need to do to actually get the solar panel where it needs to go. Meaning, by that I mean, expectation management. In this session, we're not going to learn about carbon accounting or about technical details, but we are going to hopefully learn about how to get stuff done in the field when it comes to decarbonization options. Wonderful. Okay, now that we have some initial polling done, and thanks for bearing with us there, let's go back to the screen and let's see if technology doesn't fail us now. You never know, huh? Sometimes it works wonderful, sometimes it has trouble. Here is the agenda for today. So I'll be giving you some WREC coalition updates, and we have time for some Q&A there as well, if you'd like to understand more. And then we'll move straight to our field expert panel on actions that work in the field. As I said, we want to have this session be a sort of live help desk, meaning please do ask any question you've always wanted to ask about the field. Yes, disclaimer, if the question is let's say very technological in nature, we might need to defer you. But please ask, don't hold back, ask away. We really hope for a lively exchange in here. Yeah, some updates from the WREC Coalition. In case you are not yet familiar with the WREC Coalition, we are a coalition of 4 organizations: the World Food Programme, the Danish Refugee Council, IFRC, and Save the Children. And let's say our home, is the logistics cluster. And some of the things that we have been up to lately is we have started environmental sustainability mappings in countries of focus. You can see them here. We're very excited about this because it means it will help us understand what's going on, what can be scaled, and where are gaps that need addressing. If you're keen to know more, please get in touch. We are happy to share more information there. In terms of our coalition partners, we are working with them on different things towards greater environmental sustainability, such as a decarbonization roadmap, a specific green procurement roadmap, and or a supplier sustainability impact program. So again, if you're keen to know more, get in touch and we're happy to share more info with you. Some exciting topics that are upcoming. If you visited our website, you might sometimes find it difficult to find things. Other times it's easy. And in any case, we are looking to revamp our website to make it as user-friendly as we can. And please also stay tuned for a very exciting, massive online open source course on environmental sustainability along humanitarian supply chains. In terms of upcoming events, we just want to take the opportunity of wishing you happy holidays for everyone who is lucky enough to enjoy some holidays coming up soon. And our next Reader's Digest or newsletter that details upcoming events will come in January. Good. In terms of further updates, this is a very exciting one. Some of you know it, I'm sure. And by the way, we will share these slides. So if you're keen to know the link is on the slide and you can click on it. This is a mapping of waste management facilities, which is being continuously updated. But excitingly now, it also includes a mapping of best practices of environmental sustainability. It's not yet comprehensive. It's being updated continuously. So if you want to see your initiative included there, you can contact us at the email there. That's global.rec@wfp.org. Okay, now I want to share with you a little preview. This is quite exciting. This is a preview. So this, what I'm sharing with you now, has not yet been published. And I am keen to use this opportunity also to gather feedback from you on this little preview. We are keen to produce not just tools that go into considerable detail, these can be important, but also overviews and tools and insights that are as easy to use as possible, because we recognize that especially in the field, solutions that really have low barriers or no barriers are essential. So this is one of the approaches that we have taken: quick wins and best practices to tackle greenhouse gas emissions for humanitarian logisticians in the face of data constraints. So let's take a look what we've done here. Again, this is a preview, so we are keen to also collect feedback from you on these. I have organized this as a little advent calendar, albeit with just 6 windows, not with 24. I myself am a great fan of advent calendars, so forgive me for this little reference here. So let's take a look what these quick wins can entail along humanitarian supply chains. Let's start with planning. That's this little arrow here that you see on the left side. So for planning, in terms of quick wins, what we identified and would recommend is really to use as much as you can pre-positioning and buying in bulk and group shipments. We know that a lot of organizations already do this, and this is great. We want to emphasize that this is not just an efficiency measure. It is, but it really also is a way to reduce your emissions and to reduce your packaging. We know from some people in the field that pre-positioning, for example, can reduce costs by up to 30%. So it is a win-win. It does have many implications. We recognize that this is a planning question. It's not always possible, but where it is a very effective measure. The next window will be on procurement. And here we recommend 3 steps, and these are not purely theoretical. These are steps that we ourselves have undertaken. Paula here is in the call. Paula Robert, she's our green procurement expert. She has undertaken these with IFRC in Bangladesh. And again, what you're seeing here are hyperlinks. We'll share the screens and you can access this. We'll share the slides and you can access this. So for procurement, what we would recommend is start by identifying your top spend categories. For some organizations, that might be vaccines, for example. That's the case for UNICEF. For others, food. For others, hygiene kits. Start with those, and then based on that, assess your suppliers' environmental sustainability maturity. For some global suppliers, it may mean going straight to actual decarbonization measures, such as seeing whether they can manufacture with renewable energy. For others, it may mean assisting them in starting to collect decarbonization data. Again, for others, it might mean working with them to set decarbonization targets. It depends on the maturity, but these analytical steps will help you get started. And again, we do recommend the case study for this on IFRC in Bangladesh. Let's take a look at freight. Now we know that in the field, freight is sometimes not so relevant just because it is often organized by regional or overall headquarters. But we did want to mention it because it is an essential part of the humanitarian supply chain. Now, what we recommend here is to check which freight forwarders have decarbonization targets in place. And one place to get started is the Silk Alliance, which looks at that. There are other alliances and there are other tools. So what I'm presenting here is really, really, really not meant to be comprehensive. It is supposed to be a help to get organizations started. So with this little disclaimer, let's continue with a little advent calendar to warehouse management. For warehouse management, the 2 options that are lowest key, again, they're not the only ones that are lowest key from our perspective, are to install LED lighting and to optimize heating and cooling settings. They may seem very simple, but we do know from what people tell us from the field that they are not always employed, and because they are so simple, they are essential. LED lighting can reduce electricity consumption by up to 80% compared to conventional light bulbs, so it is significant. And by optimizing cooling, just by adjusting your cooling, your AC, your air conditioning setting by 1 degree, it can already contribute to up to 10% of energy savings. So these things do really matter. They might seem soft because they're behavioral, but they do matter. If you're faced with a lack of data and you don't know how to demonstrate impact, we recommend 2 tools for you. These are not tools done by us, but they are tools that we have looked at. One of them is the WREC energy measurement tool, and we actually have one of the speakers with us here who is involved in its development. And the other is the energy consumption calculator, which you can find on the Log Cluster website. Okay, we have 2 windows left. Let's continue to fleet and distribution. Here, the measure we recommend is to train your drivers on fuel efficient driving. This is also called eco driving. So this includes things like gentle acceleration, avoiding idling, and making sure that your loads are as full as possible. This matters. Again, it seems like a soft measure, but it does matter. We know, for example, this case study that you see here from the Costa Rican Red Cross, they employed their vehicles with vehicle tracking software to be able to see and to be able to implement eco-driving. And with all these measures combined, it contributed to, it led to 19% emission reduction. So it does matter, it is significant. Last but certainly not least, we have end of life. And here the recommendation is start by getting to know your waste. It might seem simple, but it is essential. You cannot manage what you cannot measure. And we know that this is a challenge in many places. Start with a waste assessment. And again, we have one of our specialists here, that's Marta, who is our waste management specialist. And if you have questions on how to do it, I'm sure she'll be happy to assist you. And then, of course, we have our reuse, repair, recycle, compost options. We know that this may not always be possible in the field. Start with what you can do. If compost is just out of the question, that's fine. Start with reusing. Start with seeing if you can reuse your tires, for example. And there are organizations who are doing this in the field. For laptops, for example, using laptops for 5 instead of 3 years can reduce their impact by up to 25%. Now we know that sometimes we want to replace old models with newer, more energy efficient models. That's understandable. We do always need to bear in mind the impact throughout the life cycle of a product. And once again here, I'm happy to recommend a WREC Coalition tool, which is the quick guide on waste management. Okay, that was quite a lot of information on our little 6th window, let's say, advent calendar. Now that we have gone through that, this is what hopefully the ultimate publication will look like, but it is not yet published. It's a preview, but it will probably be designed more or less like this along the supply chain. But now that we have gone through this, a little poll for you. So I'm wondering if Paula and Myrna can assist me again. Which decarbonization actions do you find are easiest to implement in the field? And there, this is a ranking. So I'm inviting you, please, to pull whatever you feel is easiest to the top and then submit. So let's take a little look at our poll. If I know that some people sometimes have trouble accessing these polls, if that's the case, I invite you to put your thoughts in the chat. Okay, let's take a look. I think people are still responding. So again, here the question is, according to your experience, which decarbonization actions do you find are easiest to implement in the field? And I invite you to pull whatever action you think is easiest to the top and then submit. Okay, we have some responses coming in. And I see that bulk ordering is on top, followed by installing LED lighting and by training drivers on eco-driving. So that's really good feedback for us. Oh, you cannot see the answer options. Okay, I see that somebody is requesting that I share my screen so that you can see it. I think it's not really possible because you can't have the poll and share your screen at the same time, but I'll share a screenshot with you. How about that? 1 second. Mind you, answers are coming in, so I'll share the screenshot with you now, but it might still change. Here you go. Okay, you can see a little screenshot of the poll as it stands now in your chat. Seems that with ratings, it's a little tricky to have that be visible for everyone. Okay, so we have LED lighting on top, followed by bulk ordering and training drivers on eco-driving. Very good feedback. Thank you. This really does help us to make our products as useful as we can. Great. So now, one more poll before we move to our expert panels. Expert panel, singular. I'm sure that's the reason why you are all here. Can you tell us what other quick wins on decarbonization you know? So if we can just open that other poll. Let's just see where we are here. Okay, I think maybe this is, I don't see it right
Nora,
now here. Yeah, I don't see it right now. I don't know. It might have.
No,
it
I
might
don't
be,
see that poll.
Yeah, it might sometimes polls disappear. Maybe I got something wrong with the settings, but it's fine. Thanks though for helping with this. Okay, so let's move to another one. So we are now going to move to the expert panel on decarbonization actions in the field. I'm really happy to introduce our 3 panelists that are here with us today. This is Abba Medugu and Mushin Mufti from the Log Cluster in Nigeria. Welcome. And we also have with us Ibrahim Mustafa from Action Against Hunger. And he will speak about a case, an ongoing case, a project in Colombia. And we have with us Miranda Shami from WHO in Jordan, who will speak specifically on fleet. Now, again, this is meant to be a live help desk. So I do invite everyone in this call to put your questions in the chat as they come. As you have a question coming up, do put them in the chat and we will address questions. We will open the floor for all questions after the panelists have given their interventions. We will do this without PowerPoint. It's a bit of an experiment. We approach this as a live help desk and storytelling exercise, let's say. And before I move to our first esteemed panelist, let me just do one more poll with you. And that is, I would like to know from you in one word and in your opinion, what is the greatest challenge for implementing decarbonization actions in the field? This is a word cloud, so I do invite, if you can, I know it's not so easy, this is a tricky question. If you can, I invite you to respond with just 1 or 2 words. If you feel it requires a bit of a longer explanation, we invite you to put it in the chat. So in one word, what is the greatest challenge for you when implementing decarbonization actions in the field? And by the way, if you want to see the answers as they come in, you can see it in the chat. I think that should be possible for everyone, but I'll also update you on what comes in. And I see here the biggest one is funding. It has different names, funding, money, resources, but definitely comes again and again. That is understandable and something that we also hear. And then the other is that I see is culture, attitude. I would maybe also see them similar. Bureaucracy, senior management. You need buy-in. Yes. Leadership, also again group. So I think maybe we can see some groups here, like the grouping around funding and resources, the grouping and maybe also time. I see that too. The grouping around getting buy-in from whoever you need buy-in, senior management, partner, and so on, suppliers as well, and then also the question of attitude, culture, and so on. it's also, again, it's really helpful for us to see these challenges because it helps us address what needs addressing. So thank you for responding with this. Resistance to change, I see in the chat. Yeah, I think that maybe also corresponds to this culture attitude cluster. Thank you. Great. So thank you for answering, and please do keep the answers coming, put them in the chat. With that, with this question on and challenges in the field, let me go to Nigeria first. And let me just see here where we are. Now, you've seen the challenges that people have posed in there, and that's maybe to all our speakers. So I'm also really excited to hear maybe whether you have found ways to address some of these challenges. Let's start with Nigeria. Let's start with Maiduguri, Nigeria. We have with us Abba Medugu and Mushin Mufti from the law cluster there. We're really happy to have you. Let's kick off your intervention, Abba and Mushin, again with a little poll. Please bear with us. The WREC Coalition loves polls. So this one is a little quiz for our audience on what do you think? What decarbonization actions are underway in Maiduguri, Nigeria? And you can select as many options as you want there. Mushin and Abba, I don't know if you're looking at the poll, but I see carpooling coming up on top, followed by electric vehicles, followed by wind power. Again, this is a little quiz to get the juices flowing on what decarbonization actions do you think are already underway in Maiduguri, Nigeria. And with that, maybe I will turn it over to you, Abba and Mushin. Maybe you can tell us which of these is correct. And then over to you to tell us a little more about what's going on in your region.
All right, thank you very much. Good afternoon, all, and welcome again. Thanks for joining the session. It promises to be interesting. I'm eager to hear what the other speakers have to say about the field interventions as well. For us, actually, the reason for implementing some of these initiatives are some of the biggest barriers that you guys mentioned. And, the thing that came out at the top was actually the funds or funding. So the reason why we started thinking about, reducing our greenhouse gas emissions was actually one, environmental sustainability and the sustainability of our projects. But then also another big reason was actually the cost of operating and the funding outlook that seems to be a little bleak. So we understood was that since we have some funds at the moment, we can actually start gradually moving towards solutions that will make sure that we have lower need for funds in the future. So our operational costs will actually be lower in the future by implementing some of these solutions. So even though funding is a barrier, but funding is also a reason why we should be looking at some of these solutions as well. One of the things that we've done in Nigeria is, as the logistics sector here, we have some common warehouses that we run in the field in 6 locations. Now, these warehouses are in deep field locations. They're quite remote. And previously, they were run through diesel generators. So we had diesel generators that were powering the temperature control storage and the offices and other facilities at those warehouses. So we've now slowly transitioned those from diesel generators to solar power. At the moment, we've accomplished about 70% transition from diesel power to solar generated energy, and we're actually planning to move towards close to 100%. What we're planning to do is not just solar, but then also to complement that with small wind turbines, because on most days it's sunny here in Maiduguri, but on days that it's not sunny, it's windy. So they will be able to complement each other. And not just as the logistics sector, but then other humanitarian partners here as well have really taken on this initiative and are doing a lot. There are some organizations in Nigeria, such as SOA, such as PUI, whose offices are 90% run through renewable energy at the moment, which is great to see. And also their main drivers was also because it costs less over time to run this. Another initiative that we have here in Nigeria is related to waste and waste management. Because at the moment, Nigerians that are generating waste, that waste ends up either in landfills or being burnt. Which is, contributing to greenhouse gas emissions. So we're looking at, seeing what waste is being generated by partners, where it's being generated, and what options there are for better management of that waste. And some of the things that we're seeing already happening with partners is that they're implementing some of those solutions already, whether it's, using better incinerators for medical waste that capture some of the carbon while the waste is being incinerated, or other interventions that partners are working on. So there are a lot of things happening here, but I'll hand over to Abba to touch on a few other points for Maiduguri.
So much, Musin. Good afternoon, colleagues. Additionally, just to mention some of the key initiatives that is also ongoing here in Maiduguri. The first one being the use of electric vehicles. So in recent time, there has been a significant change in the pattern of rains and also like general weather conditions in Maiduguri. And the government, understanding that, decided to do something about the environment. And in doing so, they actually introduced electric taxis in Maiduguri, which is currently being used across. And not just the electric vehicles, but they've also introduced quite a number of charging stations. And the beauty of it is that initially when these charging stations started running, they were being run by generator. But currently, there are works that are ongoing to solarize some of these charging stations. And there is also a plan by the government to increase the number of electric vehicles, basically the taxis, but also what we call tuk-tuk and other clients. Here in Maiduguri, it is called Keke Napep, which is going to be fully electric as well. There's also going to be additional number of charging stations that will avail others the opportunity to also key into using electric vehicles. And this is something that is in the works. To add to that, there is also currently an initiative underway, which is some of it we are already doing for cargo, especially. But then now we want to also replicate same for passengers movement. So basically what we're looking into is carpooling, because currently most of the interventions that happens within Borno is mostly in the different locations, and movement to these locations mostly rely on the use of UNHAS. And this implies that on daily basis, there is a high amount of movement to and from the airport in Maiduguri. And realizing also as a community that in some cases we have maybe 10 different organizations each having one person going to the airport, and that will mean 10 different vehicles. So what we thought is to come together and then look at possibility of doing something that will give us a lot of advantages. One of it is protecting our environment. The second one is also the cost saving aspect, but most importantly also the ability for partners to come together and network. So to do that, we're also looking at taking advantage of the already established charging stations that the government have put in place. So we're basically also looking into further making use of electric vehicle, if possible, for this shuttle between our respective places and the airport. Apart from that, I would also like to mention that there is high interest, and something that is already happening is that our partners are very keen in terms of green procurement and how it relates to the environment. So basically, we've seen that many of our partners are currently doing something about, especially procurement. So what they do basically is ensuring that they prioritize procuring items within their locality, just so that they reduce the need for use to transport these commodities from a very far distance. And this is, I think, linked to what Nora was mentioning about consolidating procurement, just to make sure that we don't have to do a lot of transportation for the same type of items. So I would like to pause here, but maybe just to mention one of the secrets that we also have as a team in our office is that we believe humanity is also taking care of the environment to take care of the generations to come. And this is one of the motivations that always keeps us going and looking into the sustainable logistics. Thank you, and back to you, Mr.
All right, thank you very much. Those are some of the things from Maiduguri, and like Abba said, we always try to see how we can incorporate an environmental lens into things that we do, and it's good to see that a lot of organizations in Maiduguri are actually very conscious of the impact, and we hope to see more happening in the future. So that's all from our side. Over to you, Nora.
Yeah, thank you so much to both of you, Abba and Mushin. Really, really great intervention here. Inspiring words. We also take care of the environment, and just so fantastic to see how much is going on in Maiduguri, Nigeria, in the field. For those of you who have been paying attention, I'm sure that's everyone here. I'm sure we're all on the edge of our seats. The answer to your little quiz was that all options are correct, as you've heard from Abba and Mushin. There are electric vehicles, even charging stations. There is wind power being installed, and there is a carpooling initiative underway. So well done. Before we move on to the next region, I just want to come back to the challenges that people mentioned in the poll just before we started the panel. And one of them, of course, was around funding. I would say that was probably the biggest one. Now, you've said really clearly that what you're doing is also a manner to reduce operational costs. But some of these things do come with upfront funding. Just one question around that. How have you addressed that, this upfront funding, that initial investment that's needed?
Okay, if I make answer that, and maybe Abba can add. For some of the things that we started, actually, what allowed us to start was that there is an upfront cost, but the solutions can be scaled over time. So, for example, if we start by, we have a vision that we have one facility that we want to completely move to solar power. We can start by installing a few things and a few solar panels there to be able to run or to contribute some aspect of that. And then over time, continue to increase that. So it's a scaled approach rather than trying to fund it all at once. So that's how we're able to overcome that over a period of time. And that's why at this moment, we are still about 70% of where we want to be. And the plan is still to continue to augment what we have installed. So that funding issue, that's how we have been able to overcome that. And also where possible in some initiatives is bringing organizations together to implement an initiative like the carpooling, for example. It's not something that's been taken up by one organization, but then shared resources among the different partners that all see that this is an important and good initiative for us here. Yes, Abba, anything to add?
No, I think you've said it well, Hussein.
Thank you for answering that. Yeah, a scaled approach. Don't try to do it all at once. Starting small, working your way up is absolutely fine and can really lead to success. I think you said that extremely well. Thank you so much to both of you, Abba and Mushin. Now we're going to do a little bit of a journey from, yes, somebody wants to come in?
Just wanted to let you know, this is Mirna. Just wanted to let you know there are a couple of questions in the chat if you wanted to address them right away.
Thank you. Thanks for letting me know, Myrna. Let's just take a look. Yes, I do see some questions here. Initially, we were thinking of collecting questions and addressing them after the panel, but why not take them all? I mean, we started with questions now, if that's okay with you, Abba and Mushin. Yeah, okay, let's do that. So I see one question here on a great job on achieving 70% solarization. And the question is, are your facilities rented or are they owned? And if they are rented, how did you handle cost sharing?
So for this, actually the facilities are not rented. There's actually a combination of the government providing us space to erect mobile storage units, which we have in the field. And these solar panels are either installed on the ground or on the mobile storage units or other structures that we have there. So there are facilities that are managed through our partners, but the structure that's there, the mobile storage units, are our structures that are there. So there's no cost sharing at the moment. But we've seen a significant, this is something I forgot to add earlier as well, is the cost of, because the cost of fuel has gone significantly higher in Nigeria for the past few months. And so we were seeing a significant drop in operating costs. And the cost sharing has reminded me that we're looking into cost sharing in the future, where even though they are locked sector facilities, we would be stepping back, and for users of those facilities, they are the ones that will be sharing the cost of running those over time. And because we've reduced operational costs significantly by taking this off them, it will be much easier for other organizations to continue to manage those sites, even when the locked sector is not there.
Yeah, thank you so much. That's really a great question and a great answer. Also liked how you linked it to the just the market, the energy price, and what that means for your cost. And you really have this vision of like what's going to happen in the future. So thanks so much. One more question before we'll switch regions. I see here a question from Georgina on demand management. So to what extent does energy efficiency demand management help you to moderate implementation costs? And then linked to that, on average, how much are you able to cut energy use and downsize the size of solar panels required through energy saving devices and good energy habits? So it's a question about linking the technology, I would say, with behavioral approaches.
Yes, and this is something that we have tried to do as well, and starting with actually conversion of some of the devices, high energy consuming devices in our sites. So using more energy efficient air conditioning, for example, using less of air conditioning by insulating our offices and buildings more. Especially we do this for our temperature controlled storage, where rather than running the AC more, you kind of maybe making sure that the cold air does not escape and the heat doesn't come in. We've also taken off other things from the inverter system, things like peripheral lights. So lighting using solar lights for the compound rather than them being on the inverters as well. So all of those other things that help to make sure that our need for solarization or need for the capacity of the system is actually lowered. And then there are small things that can be done, behavioral changes that come in as well, such as just switching off lights when it starts getting bright in the day, but at the same time putting in very little devices such as timers that can just make sure that things come on and go off at the right time. So those are the kind of things that we have been putting in place to complement what we're doing.
Great, really wonderful. And every time I speak with Ava and Mushin, there's more initiatives that they have to share. It's so heartening and impressive. So thanks again for sharing your journey with us. And also, Georgina, I know that you have this lights off campaign, I think it's called, or light switch off. I don't remember the name, but you had this fantastic campaign with your organization. If you happen to have links to that, do feel free to post it in the chat. I found that very impressive. Great. Okay, so let's do a little journey now, switching from Nigeria to Colombia. So we're not just switching countries, we're switching continents. And let's go, let's say, from the broad to the specific to learn about one specific project that is currently underway in the field. And I'd like to pass the virtual mic and the floor to Ibrahim Mustafa from Action Against Hunger. Ibrahim, if you're there.
Yes, I'm here.
Welcome, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Nora. So I'm going to try to present it in a very schematic way. I think we have a short of minutes, so I don't want to be very long. But I think to start with, it will be important to know where we were looking into, what was the problem that we were looking into.
Sorry, if I could just ask everyone to please mute themselves.
Yes.
Thank you. Go ahead.
So one of the issues we were looking into was why organizations are not able to decarbonize or use renewable energies during emergencies and post-emergencies, right? So the use of solar is more common somehow in development or nexus approaches where we have we are sure that we're going to be in the place for a few years or at least for a long time so we can ensure that the investment we're doing is worth the money. And we're looking into how we can try to switch the situation also in context where we are intervening in emergencies or post emergencies, where usually teams will go with generators and gensets, right? So in order to do that, one of the issues that we identified was first the lack of technical capacity and the lack of knowledge from the teams, right? So basically every time we would ask teams, they would say, well, we don't know if it's too expensive, we don't know how much, which system we should buy, etc., etc. So the solution that we came up with, and this is part of the initiative, is also to develop a tool, which I think it's part of also what we're trying to achieve, that we call React. I mean, we can leave it in the chat after. And through React, we were trying to facilitate for people to evaluate their energy needs, but also to provide a design, so a solution. And within that solution, there was also what we call compact or mobile solutions. So now in the market, we also have solutions that are mobile and we can purchase, and you can basically move from one place to another. And we're trying to explore that because for us, it was the most innovative within the humanitarian sector. So here, probably all of us have seen or worked in permanent solar solutions. So classical scheme of a solar intervention where we put it in the floor, in the roof, etc. But we haven't seen much of solutions that are portable, right? So in parallel, we were developing the tool, which is already available. If you want to use it, you can register and you can, but that's another workshop where we can show you the tool. In parallel, we were looking to basically test the tool and if the tool was correct in a real environment, right? So we were looking for a context where basically we could test the use of the tool combined with a humanitarian context. We found that in Colombia. Why in Colombia? Basically because we identified that some of the teams that were going to the field, in this particular case, it's not even our project, so it's not related to Action Against Hunger, but we identify another NGO, which is Doctors of the World, if you know them, or in French, Médecins du Monde, that were in Colombia doing medical missions and going to the field for 15 days in a row, right? So they were going to hard to reach areas, to assist populations that were affected by the conflict. For those who doesn't know, in Colombia, there is.
Mulla on tämmöisiä pyyntöjä. Ihoöljyleikkaushaava.
Please mute yourself, colleagues.
I thought it was a question about Colombia, but I see it wasn't. So basically in Colombia, there is permanent conflict for the last 40 years, and in some of the regions related to smuggling and drug trafficking, there is insecurity and problems of access, and people who are either displaced or confined in their own villages. And of course, one of the consequences of that is they've been a bit abandoned by the central government. The infrastructures are not there, so there is not access to electricity. So these medical teams from Doctors of the World, they do medical missions and they go to the field for 15 days and they assess these teams. Of course, one of the issues they have is in these locations that are very remote, they do not have access to electricity, and they were carrying with them gensets or generators with the fuel. So there was two issues with that. One is the weight, because they need to transport, right? So one of the issues they had is they need to bring the generator and they need to bring the fuel with them. And the second issue was because of the regions we're talking, they were not very secured, and because the fuel is very demanded in that area, it was also not very safe for the teams to carry that fuel because they were putting them in risk of being, assaulted in order to take the fuel. So there were two main risks. There was an available solution that we identified could work, which was to replace basically these gensets by mobile solutions, which, funny enough, they're not produced for the humanitarian. They're not specifically designed to be used in the humanitarian context, but we found, we are piloting now the use of these solutions for humanitarian sector. So basically what we did is we identified two teams, one in the region of what we call Chocó, which is in the Atlantic, and then Nariño, which is in the south, close to the border with Ecuador. And then we replace the generator by these mobile systems, which I don't know if you see them. Basically, is panels that are deployable, so you can fold them and you can put them, once you carry them, you can put it in the floor. And a compact system, which is an inverter and a battery. Of course, we have different capacities. So basically, our work with the two teams that were there, we're basically trying to assess their energy needs. So those energy needs, we put them in the tool, and then the tool give us a solution. And then based on those technical features, we bought the system that was most needed. We bought two different systems. One was somehow medium capacity, and the second one was a bit bigger because the teams, they have different, I'm not going to go into details, but one of them is going through the boat and they have higher needs, and the other one goes by road, so they have a bit lower needs than the other one. And that's basically the initiative, is basically trying to replace gensets that are being carried by humanitarian teams through mobile solutions that are now available in the market. They're not very known, but it is an option to basically substitute. And just to finalize the presentation, I think we were visiting them in November just to observe if it was actually working. And we were very pleased to see that it is actually covering the needs that the medical teams they have. They're basically, these teams are composed of one doctor, two nurses, one psychologist, and two logisticians, and we were able to cover all the needs that were basically lighting, access to phone, for charging points, computers, in some cases ventilators, and also they had a fridge for for some of the medicines, and the energy was enough. Even in rainy, cloudy days, it was enough to cover the demand. Of course, we're just starting, so it's been like a month and a half. So we are waiting to see. We want to make a case study of this, and we will probably share it with you. So you can, we will put everything, the good and the bad, but for now, it's all positive. That's it. I don't know if I went too far in time.
No, you were perfect, Ibrahim.
Okay.
Thank you so much for sharing this story with us. This is a real life, I would say, insight of something that is going on as we speak, the mobile solar unit. And yeah, I loved also how you made the connection, right, between this project that is being implemented and in the field and the tool, the REACT tool, because you use the REACT tool to identify what works in the field. So, it is a tool that you can use to that end. Great. So I did mean to first have the panel and then have the questions, but I just see so many questions popping up that are really, really relevant. So let me just go to one here from Soisich Brun. I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing it well. He or she's asking, is the mobile solution enough for mobile keeping medicine cool, including vaccines, Ibrahim?
Yes, so it depends. Sometimes vaccines, they need a freezer, and sometimes it's enough with a fridge, right? So that's part of that, what the WREC tool can basically tell you. It's all about the power you need, right? But in general, we tend to think that, for example, a fridge consumes a lot, and it's not usually the case. There are some of the devices that are very highly energy consuming, like, for example, AC, air conditioning, it kills us, for example. I don't know, water kettle, like the teams, like the doctor wanted to do coffee with a kettle, and that will consume like 20% of the battery in like 1 minute. So it actually, we have some misconceptions of what is actually very energy consuming and what's not. Usually a fridge depends, of course, in their efficiency, etc., but it can be supported by this type of systems.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, colleagues, we really have an expert here. We have experts here, so please ask away your questions. I think this was really insightful. Like, it's not so easy to know as a layperson what consumes how much energy, and yeah, our experts can really help, and the WREC tool can also help you understand that better. Also, just wanted to highlight one thing that Paula is mentioning here, that of course we are mapping environmental initiatives in some countries of focus. One of them is Colombia. She's mentioning that. So Ibrahim, would be great maybe to be in touch with you on that. Just wouldn't want to miss the opportunity on that.
Definitely, of course.
Yeah,
Perfect.
great, fantastic. And also we have Valerie saying, can we reach out to the experts for contact and shared consultation? So this is a question to all of our speakers here. If you are comfortable sharing your contact info, alternatively, everyone can contact us, the WREC team, and we can put you in touch. But if you are comfortable sharing directly your contact,
Of
please
course.
feel free to put that in the chat. I think people are quite keen. Wonderful, really, really great. I meant to do this before you started speaking, Ibrahim, but I did not manage to do that. Let me do that now.
I was going to tell you that you forgot the quiz,
you were going to ask. I could see it in your face. Yes.
I thought you were running late, so you
we were not. I simply forgot. Let me do that now. So we have another little poll or quiz for you, so we can see if people paid attention, Ibrahim. What I'm sure they did. What do you think are the benefits of the mobile solar unit that Ibrahim just talked about in Colombia? What do you think in Colombia? Excuse me. What do you think are the benefits? So let me just launch that here. So again, you have your answer options here, and you can choose any or all. What do you think are the benefits of the mobile solar unit in Colombia that Ibrahim just spoke about? So again, colleagues, you can access the answers live as they come in your chat. And Ibrahim, we have less fuel use and emissions on top, followed by improved security in the field and reduced costs.
Well, I think they were listening then.
I think they were listening. The answers are fairly equal. Ibrahim, do you want to tell us what's correct here?
I think everything is correct, right?
Everything is correct. So I think, yeah, please go ahead.
No, I just that I couldn't see the answers, but yeah, I mean everything is correct.
Everything is correct. Yeah.
I think just to finalize, like, we definitely during the field visit, weight is one of the main concerns, right? So this is also important. When we were designing the system, we were not the WREC tool will not tell you about the weight, but once you're purchasing the system, we were actually us as well carrying, and I mean, you need to find that balance between your energy supply and the weight, right? This is the only concerns with these mobile solutions. Like if you go too big, then of course you can use much more devices and time of use, but then you need to also carry that. And people above 20 kilos or above 25 kilos, it becomes very heavy.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think, yours, and also coming back to Ava and Nushin's example, is just really great to demonstrate this is not just about emission reduction. Yes, of course it is also that, but there are other very real considerations in the field: operational cost, security, weight. These things matter, right? So I think you've highlighted that extremely well. And let me just check the chat before we make a regional pivot. I see a question from Greg. You were saying that the solar unit reduces the risk of the medical team being targeted for fuel. Do you think that the fancy tech of the solar unit could also enhance the risk at all? So is there also an increased risk?
I think there could be, but to be honest, compared to the risk of fuel, because the fuel is used for other, for other activities somehow. I mean, electricity is appreciated, but it's not as much, specifically because they are not used to it and they don't demand it as much as the fuel that they use. I mean, basically, the concern with the fuel is that it's being used to basically produce the cocaine that is in those areas is being produced. So it's highly demanded and it's very scarce. So compared to the need of the fuel, it's much lower. Of course, yes, once you have a fancy tech unit with you, it can also be a source of attack. But in this particular case, it's not the main issue. And it's not that expensive. We haven't talked about the cost, but the cost is not that high. So it's not as if they were like going to get millionaires selling the thing.
Yeah. Also a really important point, coming back to the challenges people identified in the beginning. And Mushin is asking, Ibrahim, are the units easy to move?
Sorry, easy to move?
Yes.
Yeah, that's the main advantage, basically. So the panels can be folded. I mean, I can share a picture. I was just carrying it on the shoulder. Each panel, its system of panel is like 16 kilos, so it's affordable to be carried. And then the unit as well is a compact unit that includes inverter and battery, and is like a computer, an old computer. You remember like these computers, you can carry it. And it's quite easy to carry. You can also purchase like the halves, like these bags, where it's easier to carry as well. So it is made. I mean, to be honest, and if you want to know the truth, these systems are actually designed for people who go camping in areas where there is no electricity. So it's actually designed to be carried. That's the advantage.
That's great.
We just
really
converted
great.
camping devices into.
Yeah, I mean, I might want to get one of those for myself for my next camping trip then. Really great, thank you. And please, colleagues, everyone, do keep the questions coming. I see really fantastic discussions also between participants and speakers in the chat. That's what we like. So do keep them coming. Really fantastic. Thank you so much, Ibrahim, for sharing this story. I think people are really interested and excited. And I see also that you have shared your contact in the chat. So for those who want more information, you can contact Ibrahim. Let's now do a further geographic pivot. We are moving continents and countries again. We are now going to Jordan, and we're going to hear more specifically on fleet. This time, I'm not forgetting, we will start this panel intervention again with a little poll, a little quiz. You know the gist by now. So we would like to hear from our participants, from you. What do you think motivated WHO, so the World Health Organization, Jordan, to make their fleet more environmentally sustainable? So we're just asking what you think. Of course, we haven't heard from the speaker yet, but what do you think? And the options you can see here are reduce emissions, reduce costs, or smoother logistics. And again, you can choose any or all of the options. And Miranda, our speaker, I am really happy to share the results here. We see, Miranda, the top response is reduce cost. It's followed by reduce emissions, and then comes smoother logistics. And maybe with that, Miranda, I'll just open the floor to you, and you can tell us more about the story of WHA Jordan and also which of these answers are correct. Over to you, Miranda. Floor is yours.
Thank you, Nora, for giving us the opportunity to mention about our experience in Jordan. Let me give a brief summary of our situation in Jordan. In Jordan, we used to operate all our fleet as using petrol vehicles. This was made initially, gave us many concerns relating to, as we mentioned, CO2 emissions. That was our main goal, and its effect on the environment. In addition, of course, to other issues like the cost of the petrol that was continuously increasing and the logistical concerns that we had while operating the petrol vehicles. Furthermore, since our building in Jordan is having a WHO, the Jordan Golden LEED certificate, we felt that it's not only the building itself, we have to do something for the fleet as well. Our approach in the WHO in general is walk the talk. So when we talk about environment as sustainability and reducing CO2 emissions, we wanted to do it in action as well and not just only talk. So we thought at the beginning to replace gradually a few of the fleets. We started with one electric vehicle. We were the second UN agency in Jordan to start with the electric vehicle. There was a little bit hesitance about it because we didn't, nobody knew the experience of using electric vehicles in the operation as a UN agency. But when we started with one electric vehicle and we saw that it was wonderfully being operated, we continued with the second, the third, and the fourth. So now we have 4 electric vehicles, and also meanwhile we introduced the 2 hybrids. So having this, starting this venture by analyzing our current situation, as I mentioned, in terms of the CO2 emissions, the cost, the efficiency, doing market research, suggesting new solutions to be introduced to the fleet. We had to discuss this, of course, with management and with their very much supportive senior management, and also providing the needed budget. We did this venture of introducing the electric vehicles. Now we are so happy with this experience, and the changes were done gradually. It was not, of course, changed altogether. As I mentioned, it's scale up bit by bit. Whenever we have opportunity funding here and there, we manage to focus on changing the petrol vehicle with electric vehicle bit by bit. So when we first introduced the electrical vehicle, we had also challenges of behavioral change, the mindset. Both the drivers and passengers also were kind of hesitant to use the electric vehicle and preferred the normal, petrol vehicles. But bit by bit, we managed to overcome those challenges, and everybody now are happy, drivers and passengers while using it. Also, our training for the drivers to do the eco-driving, informing their performance on how to drive the vehicle is also affecting the performance of our fleet. So as I mentioned, our main goal was to reduce the CO2 emissions. That was our main goal. In addition to having many, while using the electrical vehicles, we found so much benefits using such kind of vehicles because, first of all, the cost of the fuel, as I mentioned, was continuously increasing while the electrical vehicles were giving us less cost. Second, the logistics of handling the petrol vehicles is far different than the electric vehicles. Why? Because every time you have to change the oil, you have to see the certain parts in the petrol vehicles, while the electric vehicle doesn't need such logistic support as the petrol vehicles. On top of that, we introduced the solar panels, which also helped us a lot to reduce the cost dramatically. For example, in the past 6 months, our electricity cost reduced by $70,000. We used to pay $10,000 per month. Now we are paying $500. So we reached almost 95% of electricity recovery, and we are now still aiming to reach to 100%. So everything helped to identify the situation, understand where we are, see what we plan for, and bit by bit, we can reach to a plan that will help the whole fleet altogether. There are some drawbacks, of course, like, or let's not say drawback or challenges, like, first of all, we have to see what type of electrical vehicle is the best for each operation. And for example, electrical vehicle in Jordan might not work in the same function like in Nigeria, like in another country. So there should be proper planning. We should understand from the beginning which best type to be used, whether there is a supplier that can give the maintenance, what are the road conditions, what is the use of the electrical vehicle, if are we using it for a longer trip or a smaller trip, so that also while we do the procurement, we know what type of battery capacity we need. On top of all of that, we have to keep monitoring and evaluation of this project. For example, when we brought the electric vehicles, it was not used to the maximum. Then we thought about it. Why we are buying it if we're not using it? We changed our policy here in Jordan so that we gave the first priority to use the electrical vehicles whenever we can. If the road trip is too far and this electrical vehicle cannot reach that place, then we use the hybrid. And if those two are not good for that road, we use the petrol. So in that way, we prioritize the use of the fleet according to the proper planning for the road. So on top of all of that, we now are reaching excellent KPIs in terms of running cost, in terms of efficiency, and we are still monitoring, evaluating, finding best ways to handle the fleet. And by the way, we are going also to change another petrol vehicle to another new electric vehicle. So I hope this can shed some light for our colleagues. And as I mentioned, it's not just buying a vehicle. There should be continuous monitoring and proper planning for that trip. Thank you.
Miranda, thank you so much. Another very inspiring story from Jordan on how you transformed your fleet and you continue to transforming your fleet towards making it more environmentally sustainable. And, you know, coming back to the little quiz at the beginning, I think you've demonstrated that, yes, it's about reducing emissions, but it's very much also about reducing your costs. And it's also about smoother logistics, right? So again, all options were correct there. And I think, you know, that's something that we've seen in all the panelists, that we are talking about win-win solutions here, right? I mean, I think the figures you presented were very impressive, going from a couple of $1,000 to $500 a month. I think you said that is significant, right? So you mentioned your KPIs, your key performance indicators. Those things really matter to logisticians, right? So we are talking about real benefits that we see right here, right now. Also really liked how you made the connection between the technology, right, the electric vehicle on the one hand and the behavior on the other hand, and the convincing that needs doing. Yeah, I see some questions in the chat, but maybe I could just also come back to the challenges that people identified initially. So again, just on the cost aspect, I think you've showed so well how your running costs have been reduced. But what about the upfront cost? You know, like people say electric vehicles, they are initially more expensive. How are you handling that?
Okay, the first thing how we handle is that when we thought of selling, let's say, an old petrol vehicle, we use the revenue of this selling to and on top of it another money to another funds to buy the new electric vehicle. So by this kind of replacement helped us. So you don't first of all put a lot of money to buy a new vehicle, because you have part of the funds from selling old vehicle, and it's impossible to make all changes all together. It has to be scaling up, taking step by step. So you buy one vehicle, next time you replace another vehicle, and so on. So it's not a one year, action. It is coming gradually. Whenever you have opportunity for funds here and there, we have to then put some funds for the electric vehicle. So altogether, you have to have proper planning. It's not easy. You just say I want money and it comes like that. No, we have to do planning and put in our mind that this is a priority. Like the other operations, environment is our concern, and it should have priority in our programs as well.
Yeah, thanks so much. I think, again, we've seen this also before, right? It's about gradual change. Do
Mhm.
what you can now. It's not
Mhm.
about making a switch like this
Yeah.
from 0 to 100, right? So, but do what you can now. So, like, I think this is an interesting approach, using funds from selling old vehicles and putting them against a better option. That's really great. Yeah, let me just quickly look at the chat here, what we have. We have quite a lot of questions and discussions going on. I see a question on, are there government regulations in Jordan encouraging electric vehicles? I think someone may have answered that in the chat already, but Miranda, if you want to also speak to that for anyone who's not had a chance to look at the chat.
At some point, it's fluctuating. Sometimes they are encouraging, sometimes they are increasing customs. But in general, it's not affecting UN agencies because we have customs-free, exempted vehicles. So whether they increase taxes or not, it's not affecting the UN agencies. So we have this, at least, freedom to buy whatever we want without customs exemption. But yes, the government is always encouraging and we can see most of the population in Jordan are using electric vehicles because it is cost-wise better for them than using the petrol, which fuel is highly increasing. So it's fine for the UN agencies, and the government is, yes, encouraging that.
Yeah. Thank you. I mean, of course, yeah, for UN agencies, maybe in a somewhat, let's say, special situation because of what you just outlined, might not always be the case for NGOs. But I think, again, and this is also something that I think Ibrahim and Abba and Hushan also mentioned, right? I mean, the fuel costs, they are just there, they are fluctuating, they are increasing. So, that also drives initiative, right? Yeah, let me just check what else we have here. We have another question. If charging stations are connected to generators, or if the main source of electricity in the country is coal, is it consistent to move from petrol to electric vehicles?
Yeah, my personal views, I don't think it's practical to use generators to charge the electric vehicles. I'm not sure. This needs a study about it. But in Jordan, luckily, we have the national grid, and we're not using generators. And as I mentioned, on top of that, we have the solar system that is feeding almost 95% of our electricity. I see also on the chat about the charger boxes. We have installed charger boxes, and it's smart also because it can capture the electricity consumption of the vehicles. Because we are also involved in a study with the Fleet Forum on the use of electric vehicles in comparison with ICE vehicles. So we are capturing the monthly data of both the fuel and the electric vehicles. And with this smart chargers, we are capturing the consumption of the electricity every month. So for the drivers, it's very easy for them. They use the vehicle all the day, and when they park the car before leaving home, they just plug in and charge it. And with this smart charger, they can even stop charging it even from home using a mobile application. So we are not facing any problem with the charging, because in some countries maybe they go to a special petrol station and they stay in the line and wait for hours till they charge the car. This is not in Jordan. It's very easy. They just plug in the garage in our office and they leave home. So it's very practical and very easy. We're not facing any issue with that.
Oh, that does sound extremely practical, Miranda.
Yeah.
I kind of want to try that right now myself. So we do have some more discussions and questions in the chat, which is fantastic. But I do just want to come also to the questions that people submitted in advance. So let me just go to that. It's a little bit of a pivot, maybe away from the specific topic, but I did want to make sure that we address those. So we did have a question in advance submitted by Siuban. Again, my apologies if I'm not pronouncing the name well, from the International Organization for Migration. So Siuban, if you're there and you'd like to ask a question, the floor is yours.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. That was a really interesting presentation. My name is Siobhan. I'm from IOM, but I lead the Global WASH Cluster's Climate Change Working Group. So my question was around if at country level, there's what kind of coordination is going on within a logistics cluster. I'm wondering in particular if you're aggregating data from different organizations, because in the WASH cluster, we're we'd like to look into that, if that possibility, to help us make decisions and advocate around changes in the way we program. But it'd be interesting to know if you've had any success or if there are challenges in aggregating data from members of the cluster.
Maybe we can ask Ava and Mushin if they'd like to come in on that.
Yes, I think that's a very good question, and it's actually something that we have started with the help of the WREC coalition, where the first thing that we're trying to do is to understand who is doing what when it comes to environmental initiatives, so that we have an idea already of what is in place and what organizations are doing. And then we would be able to see what solutions can be scaled from there, and where the gaps are, which are common for everybody. So yes, we're trying to put together that kind of information to understand what the different humanitarian actors are doing here. And yeah, I would like to thank the WREC Coalition for the initiative, and also working with some other coordination platforms such as the Fleet Forum for other initiatives such as a carpooling. So there are a few things happening here and there, but the local sector here is heavily involved in trying to understand what people are already doing and what can be done more, so that we can identify those areas of improvement.
Thank you, Mushin, and Siobhan, thank you for raising that question. It is a good question, and I think a lot of people have similar questions. So indeed, like Mushin said, we are currently undertaking this mapping on environmental initiative in countries of focus. Siobhan, I'm wondering, maybe we can touch base also afterwards on this. We're always keen to collaborate as widely as we can on this, because yeah, we also feel that for scaling solutions and coordinating well and addressing gap, this is a really important step. Thank you for raising that. So some other questions people submitted, and these were submitted anonymously. Otherwise, I would ask them to raise the question themselves directly. But since they were raised anonymously, I will take the liberty of reading them out. There is a question on, in an official environment, how can we enhance decarbonization in countries like Afghanistan? So if I am understanding that question well, it's maybe specifically, how can we implement decarbonization in challenging contexts? I am wondering if maybe Ibrahim or Miranda, if you have some thoughts on that.
From my side, it's difficult to talk about another country because we have to see the context of each country by itself. So we don't know what are the policies, procedures, what are the UN initiatives or NGOs together. So maybe the person who's asking should do his research in that country. I'm not sure what can I comment about another country.
That's understandable, Miranda. Of course, you are the expert for Jordan, and it does depend on the context. Ibrahim, do you have any thoughts?
No, I think what Miranda says makes sense. For example, in terms of access to solar items and the suppliers that are available in the country, all of this, the government policy on renewable energies, all of this will condition basically if in Afghanistan particularly you can actually implement solar systems, or it will be very complicated. We've faced, I mean, as Action Against Hunger, for example, we were trying to bring some solar systems to Sudan currently with the crisis, and it was very complicated because, I mean, logistically, there was no availability of items, right? Or it was extremely expensive. So it is context dependent. I'm sorry, I cannot give the answer for Afghanistan. I'm not an expert on the country.
Yeah. Maybe the person asking can check other agencies, see whether they implemented anything, whether solar system or electric vehicle, and then built on their experience, see what are the challenges, what is their experience on this.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I think you said it really well. It does depend on the context, and I do see a hand up, but just before I open the floor, maybe just some thoughts. I think there are some measures such as the ones you mentioned, solarization, electric vehicles, would really depend so much on the country context. But there are also, let's say, the behavioral measures, some of which we've mentioned in the beginning that maybe are a good starting point, right? Adjusting cooling or heating settings, seeing with LED lights, working with your drivers towards a different driving style. Those are things that you can probably do almost irrespective of any regulatory context. So maybe that would be just some thoughts from our side, how to get started. Another thing on Afghanistan specifically, the WREC coalition is currently working with the Danish Refugee Council on their decarbonization roadmap. We mentioned it in the beginning. And we have looked especially at Afghanistan. So I don't want to share more details right now, so in the interest of time, but if you are keen, maybe you can reach out to the WREC coalition and we can connect you to the person who asked the question. I don't know if they can hear me. But Kelly, I see that you have your hand up. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks a lot. One thing I note when I'm with the Global Shelter Cluster Environment Green Team, one thing we note when we did the environmental profile,
Who the fuck is this?
so a year and a half ago now, was that there's actually a very high level of solar panel use in Afghanistan. Matter of fact, there's actually issues about over pumping water using solar panels and things like that. What we found was that there was considerable inconsistency on the use of solar power and alternate sources of power within the country. So on the one hand, the main UN compound was full of solar panels, but other agency compounds were not. And there was an active request or a request by some of the shelter partners to share information. So I think part of the challenge in Afghanistan and likely other countries is having a coordinating structure in country to share who are, what people have done, how much it costs, who are the good contractors, and all the technical stuff. And particularly as you move down from like large UN agencies or large organizations to smaller and including national organizations, which may not have access to a high level of technical support and may not have access to stuff that's in languages that they can effectively use. So it was an interesting situation in which lots of solar panels everywhere, very solarized, but sharing the knowledge, and particularly within the humanitarian community, was one of the issues that we identified. Thanks.
Kelly, thank you so much for coming in there. That was really, really valuable. Noting this context, it is possible to install solar panels, but there is a question of coordination on how to get the information that you need. So maybe that links also a bit to the question that Siobhan raised earlier, right? Like how can we ensure like ideal coordination on the regional or national level so that this information doesn't get lost. So maybe there's action to be taken here. Thanks so much for sharing that. Colleagues, everyone, I see that we are almost at time. I just want to check. We've heard, I think, some really wonderful stories from our speakers and also from very insightful questions. I see the chat is very active. Are there any last questions or comments from anyone? And you can raise your hand and speak or put them in the chat as you will before we close the session. Okay, I am interpreting the silence as it was all really clear and hopefully very interesting. Certainly, I thought it was inspiring and very, very interesting. So let me maybe close the session with one last poll because we do love them so much, and we wanted to close the session with let's say an action-oriented outlook, and we want to ask you again with a word cloud: what decarbonization action do you want to implement in the field now that you've heard these inspiring stories? Let's hear from you one last time. One response so far. Behavior. Oh, more coming. Electric vehicles, mobile energy. I think everyone, Ibrahim, Miranda, Mushin, Abba, you have inspired people there. Regenerative agriculture, I think that's what I'm reading here. Yeah. Mobile energy is coming out on top. Ibrahim, I think maybe the prize goes to you there. Really, really nice. Thank you. Vehicles, changing behaviors, solar fridges. hybrid vehicles. Of course, that's also an option if electric vehicles are challenging. There are always the hybrids. And just checking the chat also if there are any last points. Yeah, great. Yeah, colleagues, participants, I do hope that you found this session inspiring and helping you with taking action. I certainly was very inspired by our esteemed speakers, and I want to really thank them very warmly indeed for sharing their stories. Abba, Mushin, Miranda, and Ibrahim, thank you so much. They have shared, I believe, their contacts in the chat, so reach out to them if you'd like further info. And Myrna, also thanks so much for sharing again our contact for the WREC Coalition, global.rec@wfp.org. If you have questions, we do have a help desk. This was a live help desk to give you a sneak peek how this works. You can write to us if you have more specific questions. And I just also wanted to put in the chat, we do have a little evaluation form for you on the session. Here you go. So if you'd like to give us your feedback on the session to help us continuously improve, please do so. And with that, once again, thank you so much to our speakers, to you, the participants, for your questions, for your insights, to my dear colleagues for supporting. And we wish you a very good morning, evening, afternoon, depending where you are. And if we don't hear from each other again, for those of you who are celebrating, we wish you happy holidays. Thank you so much, and goodbye.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Nora.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.